began to use his wife Damilola as a maid in her own house. He would wake her up at night to prepare food for his pregnant mistress, who always woke up at odd hours of the night to request for fresh food. Once upon a time, there lived a man named Femi who despised his wife so much. He spared no opportunity to show his wife how much he hated her. His wife Damilola was a very beautiful and quiet woman whose beauty began to wane because of constant thinking and crying. Femi would leave the house early in the morning and return home late, not caring about the welfare of his wife. One day, Damilola was home alone when her husband returned with a woman who he said was pregnant for him. Damilola could not believe her ears as she bursted out in tears. She was yet to have a child of her own, and her husband paid no mind to her, but rather went on to impregnate another woman in the village. Damilola was still trying to wrap her head around what was happening when her husband Femi informed her that the woman had come to live with them. Damilola, still trying to get over the shock, questioned her husband's decision to bring his mistress into their home, and Femi, enraged at his wife's question, slapped her so hard on the face as he ordered her to go into the kitchen to prepare food for his mistress and himself. Damilola, nursing the pain from the slap, silently went into the kitchen to prepare the food as tears streamed down her face. She could not fathom how her life had taken such a painful turn, and the presence of the pregnant woman in her home was now a constant reminder of how cruel her husband was towards her. As Damilola prepared the meal, she could not help but overhear the conversation between Femi and his pregnant mistress, whose name was Toyin. Femi seemed unapologetic, proudly declaring that he no longer cared about his wife Damilola and was only keeping her because of pity. Damilola loved Femi so much and was willing to do anything for him. But as years passed in their marriage, Femi grew out of love and began to talk down on his wife and treated her badly. Damilola soon became a shadow of herself as Femi began a new relationship with his mistress, denying her of any form of attention and affection. As days turned into weeks, Damilola endured the emotional agony of living with her unfaithful husband and his mistress. Femi's disdain for Damilola only grew worse as he continued to treat her with contempt. He began to use his wife Damilola as a maid in her own house. He would wake her up at night to prepare food for his pregnant mistress, who always woke up at odd hours of the night to request for fresh food. Damilola would stay up late for hours preparing the food that her husband's pregnant mistress was craving, and one day, when she finished cooking the food, Toyin, her husband's mistress, refused to eat, saying that she was no longer hungry. Damilola was so furious to hear this, but she maintained her calm as she feared what her husband would do to her if she ever complained. The next day, Damilola could not stop reminiscing about the good time she once had with her husband. The thought of this broke her heart as she wished for him to return back to the sweet and loving man she once married. She sat in front of her hut, deep in thoughts, when Toyin poured a bucket of dirty water on her, claiming not to have seen her sitting there. Damilola, instead of confronting Toyin, walked away to avoid any form of confrontation with her. She ignored what Toyin did as she walked back into her hut to change her soiled and dirty clothes. Not long afterwards, her husband Femi rushed into her hut, screaming and accusing her of beating Toyin up and trying to harm their unborn baby. Damilola tried to explain to Femi that she did nothing of such, but Toyin insisted that Damilola beat her up when he was away. Femi became so agitated as he began to beat his wife up. He beat her to a pulp and threw her belongings outside his house, saying that he was no longer interested in the marriage and that Damilola should return back to her family. With a heavy heart, Damilola left Femi's house. She was so devastated as she did not know how to face her family. Lost in her own thoughts, Damilola summoned the courage and decided to return back to her family, who were all shocked to hear all that she had been going through. Femi continued to live with his mistress, who he later made his wife. She gave birth to a baby girl and was soon overtaken by the task of looking after a newborn baby. After a few months, Femi lost interest in his second wife Toyin as he got himself a new woman who he claimed to have fallen deeply in love with. His wife Toyin was so angry as she could not stand the thought of sharing her husband with another woman. She visited a very powerful juju man to prepare a charm that would kill the woman that her husband was in love with. The juju man then gave her a red candle to speak into. He told her to tell the candle all that she wanted to happen, and Toyin did as the juju man instructed and retired back home excited. The next day, news reached Toyin that her younger sister was dead. Toyin was so devastated to hear the news and asked how she died. It was then that they revealed to her that her sister mysteriously slumped and died. Toyin then noticed how the news of her sister's death affected her husband greatly and realized that her sister was the woman that her husband was deeply in love with. Following the strange way her sister died, the villagers decided to inquire with the gods to find out the cause of her death, and we are told that Toyin, her sister, was responsible for the death of the young woman. Horrified by the revelation, the villagers confronted Toyin, who confessed to killing her own sister. She was shunned by the villagers for resorting to such extreme measures to win back her husband's love. The news of her actions spread like wildfire around the village, and Toyin became an outcast in the very village where she had once caused Damilola so much pain. Even her husband Femi shunned her as well, as he sent her packing from his house, saying that he never wanted to see her again in his life. Toyin could not believe how her life had turned out. Ashamed of what she had done, she left the village and no one ever saw her again. Femi began to spend more time with his friends as he left his daughter in the care of his old mother. One day, Femi's best friend Toby came to inform him that his first wife Damilola was getting married to another man. Femi could not believe his ears. He rushed as fast as his legs could carry him to Damilola's house, and to his amazement, Damilola was indeed getting married. Femi, filled with so much jealousy, confronted Damilola at her wedding ceremony. His eyes were red with anger as he demanded an explanation for her decision to marry another man. The villagers, who had witnessed the entire saga between Femi, Damilola and Toyin, were not sympathetic towards Femi. Damilola looked at Femi with a calm demeanor. She explained that after enduring years of mistreatment and heartache, she had found a man who treated her with kindness and respect. The villagers, who had once disapproved of Femi's actions, now stood firmly behind Damilola. They believed in her right to happiness and saw Femi's outrage as an attempt to control her once again. Damilola's new husband, Ade, approached Femi with a calm smile. He spoke gently, expressing his commitment to making Damilola happy and giving her the love that she deserved. The villagers were solidly behind Ade as they cheered him on, knowing that Ade would take good care of Damilola. Femi, realizing that he had lost Damilola forever, retreated in defeat. He returned home sad and miserable as he could not believe how his life had turned out. In that moment, Femi regretted all he did to Damilola, knowing that he had lost the best thing that ever happened to him in his life. Damilola lived happily with her new husband Ade, who took good care of her and loved her with all of his heart. She began to glow as she rediscovered her sense of self-worth and found the love and respect she had always deserved. The lesson to be learned from this story is that you will never know the value of what you have till you eventually lose it. Treasure the people you have in your life and treat them kindly because you never know when they might be gone. Love and respect are essential in any relationship, and cruelty only begets more suffering. I hope you enjoyed the story.
Like, subscribe and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.